Just off out to collect another consignment with my woolly apprentice here. Another vintage bike build, this time from the late 80s, and another parsimonious budget, this time an eye-watering £249. Obviously, you and I would spend that kind of money on a pair of XTR jockey wheels, but this has come from another non-cycling friend who's keen to take possession of one of my retro bike builds, and who am I to say no? So I went off looking for a bargain, and a bargain I believe I have found. Another unboxing reaction video, and no Hollywood jiggery pokery here. I genuinely am not faking this. I have no idea what to expect. However, my expectations are high. The gentleman that sent me this box not only has taken great pains to package it extremely meticulously, including labeling how to open it, but he's also emailed me pictures of how he's packaged it, and his attention to detail is quite commendable. So I think what's in this box is going to be something that has been extremely well looked after, beautifully dismantled, cleaned and packaged, and therefore something that we should all be very excited about. So let's go in. Wow, that is some packaging. He's even left a handwritten note by the look of things on a rather lovely postcard. Welcome to your Muddy Fox jigsaw puzzle. Have fun building and turning the clock back to 1989. Right, I am going to have fun building, and thank you, Simon, from Hoop Rider Cycle Works. There you go, big shout out to Simon. He is clearly as much of a respecter of history as I am, and I'm sure he's going to look forward to watching this build as much as we all are. Okay, well, let's start with this rim. Now I'm assuming, given that this is a 1989 Muddy Fox, that these rims will be Araya. Very clearly, impeccably looked after, straight as a laser and beautifully clean, so no cleaning and polishing required. What's next? Beautifully packaged. Every last corner has been filled out so that nothing shifted around in transit. And don't worry, this will all be recycled. All right, we're down to the real treasure now. Avocet racing saddle. It needs gluing down on one edge, but otherwise that's ready to roll. Rear hub and bottom bracket cable guide, beautifully packaged. He's even gone to the lengths of polishing all the spokes. So all I need to do really is measure them, work out whether they're front, rear, drive side or non, and relace the wheels, which will be an evening of fun. Our rear U-brake, fabulous. And I believe if this is the kind of Muddy Fox that I think it is, this won't be a Shimano U-brake like on the recent Muddy Fox and Ridgeback that I've worked on. This I think is going to be a dia-compe, maybe even Suntour branded. I guess we're going to find out. Pedals, looking forward to seeing what kind of pedals are on it. In fact, we'll bust this one open now. Oh my gosh, those are lovely. What even are they? Metal cages. MKS, but period correct. Excellent. Oh, look at that. He's rebuilt the freewheel. Fantastic. Very kind. Thank you very much. It's been stripped, re-greased and rebuilt, so all I have to do is tighten the left-hand thread lock ring. That's an easy enough job. Derailleurs is going to be another treat. Looking forward to seeing what they are. Pretty sure they're Suntour on this one. Without further ado, let's have a look at the frame and fork. So, a Muddy Fox Explorer. So much like the Saracen limited edition that I built very recently, this is another one of those bikes from the late 80s that was marketed as an adventure bike rather than a performance bike. The frame looks like it's in lovely condition. Certainly been well looked after. Oh yeah, look at that. I don't know if you can see that, but a beautiful deep metallic goldy yellow finish. Certainly don't want to mess with that. As you know from all my previous videos, I'm not one for respraying unless I absolutely have to. I think I need to respect the history of the original frame, and this is nowhere near rough enough that it requires any kind of respraying. Just a lot of polishing and TLC, I think. All right, here it is. So what do we know about this frame? It's made of Tangay MTB, which is triple butted chromoly. This would have come in at the same price point as Reynolds 531, which in 1989 makes this very much a serious mountain bike. And it was certainly built to last. More evidence that it was intended as an adventure bike. You can see halfway down the fork blades there is a rack mount there, which really means this thing was built to carry luggage front and rear, so the sort of thing that you would cross a continent on. Original seat post here, lovely Japanese aluminium, nice big chunk of machined alloy there. Right, this is the fun stuff: levers, shifters, stem and grips, derailleurs. Let's get unpackaging. Once again, very beautifully wrapped in tissue paper. That is ultrasonically clean. Thanks once again to Simon. That is lovely. Suntour XCD. This is going to be the first Suntour group set build that I've done on this channel. I've obviously used XC Pro brakes on my Quinny that you've seen, and I've got XC Pro brakes on the Orange Rally in my office too, but a full Suntour group set is quite something special. And the matching XCD AccuShift derailleur in lovely condition. Obviously a few scratches on the surface, but when you look at the jockey wheels and the general tightness of all the springs, this was really built to last and is beautifully put together. So much nicer quality on things like the barrel adjusters than you would get on Shimano at the same price point. Really looking forward to putting that together. I'm going to assume the controls are in similarly good nick. Original Muddy Fox grips. Wow. Kraton rubber. Oh, those are nice. Now, I know I've said on videos before that I'm a bit icky about second-hand grips, but Simon assures me not only are these factory original from '89, but also they're barely used and he has sterilised them. So I'd actually use those myself. I'm inclined to use those. They feel fantastic. Nice Calloy saddle quick release, again in immaculate condition. It looks like it's fresh out the factory. This thing's well over 3 decades old. So yeah, very happy with that. It's exactly the same as the one that's on my ridge patch. Muddy Fox branded stem there. That is nice, with it with a built-in cam for the front brake. Really nice finish on that. Certainly no lightweight, but obviously built to last. Wow. Okay, here we go. These are worth a close-up. I'm going to do a video very soon talking about thumb shifters because I've procured yet another XT pair for one of my own builds. But these Suntour AccuShift ones are just beautiful. This wouldn't have been as expensive as XT back in the day, but the finish on it, again, these lovely knurled alloy barrel adjusters, just the action of them is so nice. Arguably better than Shimano. I think the XC Pro, which was top of the range in '89, would have been nicer than XT, but just for some reason much rarer. Really, really nice, and obviously barely, I mean, obviously they've been used, but they've still got the original stickers on. Wow. Look at that. dia-compe 282s, motocross style 4-finger brake levers. So obviously the fashion went 3-finger and then 2-finger, and of course now all mountain bikers use no more than 1 finger on the brake lever, because of course with hydraulic brakes that's all you need. But these 4-finger brake levers are fabulous, and again they've got that lovely dia-compe or Suntour machined barrel adjusters, which would have been plastic on the similarly priced Shimano ones. So that's just lovely. Let's have a look at this U-brake. More lovely dia-compe. See again, the Shimano equivalent, like the X-Age Mountain one that I've got on my Ridgeback from the year earlier, is, I'm guessing, steel underneath the plastic coating, whereas this, of course, is aluminium. This bike probably wouldn't have been anywhere near as cheap as my Ridgeback in the same period. This is definitely a step above, and you can see, looking at details like this, the reasons why. Just unpacking the front hub, he's even cleaned the bearing surfaces for me, and they are immaculate. And this thing's so light as well, beautiful aluminium body. All the bearings are here. And here is the chain set. So this is Muddy Fox branded, but I'm guessing it will have been Sugino. There you go. So Sugino, another Far Eastern manufacturer, doing its own take on the biopaste that we've talked about a few times. These ovalized rings. Beautiful condition and really nice quality too. Very little wear on the actual crank arms, which is good because this kind of metallic finish would be very hard to replicate. Much nicer quality crank bolts than on the equivalent Shimano, and what looks like aluminium rings too. Everything below X age trail of this age would have had steel rings on it. Certainly the last Muddy Fox I did had steel chain rings. These are definitely aluminium, so that's a lovely chain set. Well, there we are. I don't think I've ever seen such a meticulously cleaned strip down. Things like cleaning every individual ball bearing and every individual spoke. So yeah, cannot thank you enough, Simon. All I've got to do is touch up some of the scratches and scuffs on the frame, procure the bits off eBay to finish this bottom bracket. Obviously it's going to need tyres, cables and a bit of finishing, but the build is going to be delightful. It's going to be much more fun than a jigsaw puzzle, and I'm going to keep my hands clean throughout. You're witnessing in action here my homemade headset press. So in order to press the cups into the head tube, you don't need to pay for a tool. You simply buy a piece of threaded rod from B&Q. This is long enough to go down and touch the ground so it stabilizes itself, and then the appropriate sized washers and nuts. And then all you do is gradually position it, tighten it, tighten it until the cups are pressed perfectly into the head tube. As with all headset presses, you do it one cup at a time. So you'll note that this cup's going in, this washer is just sitting flush against the top of the head tube, and then we'll swap and do the next one. There you go. Much cleaner and better for the bike than braying it with huge hammers, which is what I would have done in my youth. Don't worry, I have liberally greased down inside this steerer. I would never advise anyone to insert a quill stem without doing that. Let's talk about why this bike was such a bargain. Simon, who sent it to me, got it from the original owner, who was a guy who had bought a matching pair of Muddy Fox Explorers back in '89, and this was the one that he bought for his wife. And she has obviously used it, it's been ridden and seen some adventures, but unlike the ones that were bought for teenage boys back in the day, it's clearly been looked after, not abused, it's been kept clean and maintained, etc. Not just used to do skids and jumps in the woods. And that's why it's survived in such lovely condition. And talking of meeting the budget, as I said at the beginning of the video, we have a parsimonious budget of £249. To spare his blushes, let's just call my friend Neil. Neil, whose tightness is almost as legendary as Paul's, for whom I built the Saracen in the last video, is going to be delighted that I'm going to be able to meet his budget with great ease. Simon, who, by the way, has measured and labelled the spokes for each wheel. So, I mean, speaking of bargains, he only wanted £150 for everything that we saw in the box, which is already a phenomenal bargain. And all that's really necessary to finish it, I've been able to get off eBay. So far, and I'm pretty certain I'm not going to find any gremlins, we are well within budget. Well, you can see and hear and feel how clean and well greased these wheels are. Those things have been spinning for ages. Always remember that bottom brackets tighten in at the opposite direction to the direction of pedalling. So in this case, left-hand threaded. Right, we're nearing completion. And here's a bit of useful intel for anybody that's thinking about acquiring a used bike. Stuff like this, which is from where the cable housing used to be. Obviously, I've put some new cable housing on now. This doesn't really worry me. This just shows that the bike's got a few miles on the clock, but actually nobody thought about head tube protectors in the 80s. So this kind of wear is always going to happen. It just shows the bike's been ridden. Anyway, we can touch that up. But what's really interesting is the chainstay. Chainstays are always the marker of how a bike has been used. Now this one is almost immaculate. This bit of chain rash here is minimal. You get that on one ride. Now it doesn't look like it's ever had a chainstay protector on it. There's no sort of residue from an old shark fin or anything. And what this basically means is that the bike has clearly not really been ridden off-road. If you did jumps, stunts, downhills, trails, you'd get so much chain slap, because of course we didn't have clutch derailleurs back in the day, that the chainstay would be rashed and scarred, and it really barely is. And of course we know this because we know who used to own this bike and how it's been looked after. So anyway, that's just a little tip. It's a really good way of telling how a bike has been used. These dia-compe canties, 984s I think they are certainly older than the 986s and 987s I'm used to. They're actually quite easy to set up. I've backed the springs off as far as I can because these are some seriously powerful return springs. But they're great because the springs are entirely external, which means you can get at them easily. You can twist this dial here before clamping down to set the height of the whole body. And then of course adjusting the pads is slightly fiddly, but once they're set up, these things are lovely. that's a wrap. And before any of you internet scrutineers start gnashing your teeth with rage at me for finishing off an all Suntour build with a Shimano chain, I'm not doing this as an act of trolling, although your rage does amuse me. It's simply because this is the correct gauge chain at the right price. And speaking of price, let's talk about my parsimonious friend Neil's budget. He gave me $249, and I've done it. Well, as I said, 150 for the box of bits, plus tyres, tubes, rim tapes, chain, a few bolts and cables for 240 quid. And once again, I'll save the superlatives because you've already heard me babbling on about Muddy Fox and its historical significance on a previous video. I will let this speak for itself.